Okay, everybody, for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and welcome to I.M.POSSIBLE. Now, before we get going, I'm going to ask if we can stay off of this top step here. This way nobody really blocks the display, and it gives me a little bit of room to move around the whole hosting thing, right? Now, also, if I can direct your attention to your menu wheel in the lower left, you're going to notice at the top of that menu wheel is a microphone icon. And if that microphone icon is clear, that means we can hear you and what's happening in your environment. So I'm going to go ahead for a little bit and turn that to red. See, it's already been done. Thank you. This basically means that you mute it when you see that that's red. So if somebody comes into your space and says, "Hey, are you still on that thing?" Well, feel free to answer them because we're not going to hear it. You'll also avoid social ruin back at the campfire. If you have a dog that starts barking, you're not going to become known as the avatar that started barking during the event. Now, just because you're muted doesn't mean you can't participate. You can and should use this pink cheek smiley face that you see in your menu wheel there. When you press on it, your emoji panel opens up. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with this. But if somebody shares a story and it's like it's deep and meaningful and you feel something, you want to show some love, you can go like that. Say somebody tells a story that's pretty exciting where they swim across some quicksand, Tarzan style, and you're very impressed. You can throw up the applause, right? Maybe somebody says something that really resonates with you. You feel it. You want to smile. You can do that. Maybe somebody tells a sad story. You can frown like that. Maybe somebody says something funny. Like a funny story. Those are great. You can do like a little silly face there. Now this, if you raise your hand up like this is not the same as asking a question. This is how you let me know if something's gone wrong, like maybe moving the hands around, but you can't hear any voice coming out, and you're like, it looks like he's talking, but I don't hear anything. Well, that's when you would press that button. Now, if I see one of those go up, I'm really, I'm just going to keep on going. But if I see like 5 of you doing it, I know there's a problem, like maybe the screen's gone on fire, and I say that in every event. I tell a story about how my moderators once set the screen on fire, and I really wasn't thinking about it when I made that slide, but I really, really should have put some more thought into that. Actually, my wife made that slide. I shouldn't take credit for that. That's not mine. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing here today is we're going to be telling stories. Originally, I.M.POSSIBLE was supposed to be a one-time event. All right, I thought the world was a pretty negative place. I wanted to, put some positivity into it. And so we had this event, and my hope was that somebody would come to this event that was, facing, maybe they were in a different relationship, a difficult relationship. Maybe they were facing a difficult problem at work or school that they couldn't get past, and they were stuck on it. And they came here and they heard a story about how somebody broke through the other side of a really hard situation that they or somebody around them thought was impossible, and they got it going. And maybe they were inspired to keep on going because it's kind of like that. And the way that this is going to work is what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the panel here. This way you're going to see a raise hand button up here, as if by magic, on your lower right. And if you have a story that's your own or a story of somebody maybe it's a story that you read where somebody overcame difficult odds and they achieved something they themselves or the people around them didn't think could be done, we want to hear about that kind of stuff today. And since pauses are the natural enemy of the All Space event host, if nobody raises their hand to get on that list, I'm gonna just keep it going and tell some stories that I know. And if you hang around to the end of the event, we're unveiling something very special today. We unveiled this bottom button here last night, where, we press that button and the world turned blue and we got taken across another space. But this top button, this is something really special. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and we finally got it working. And, you can try to press it all you like. It's not going to work. It only works for me right now, but we're going to, it's going to do something really cool. It's worth seeing. You haven't really seen much like that in Old Space, I'm pretty sure, so far. But so something really new. I'm looking forward to showing it off. But first, let's get going. Let's get into it, right? And, oh, hey, Fluffy Bunny, how's it going? Trying to do the host thing. You're going to want to step back a little bit. Oh, also, that reminds me. We are actually filming this event today, and I've been trying to, get this on YouTube for a while because I'd like to share it with a larger audience. But every time I get the footage, I always feel weird about sharing it because a lot of times people share personal stories, and what I'd like to do is, from the beginning, just explain, that we are going to be filming this today. And if you do end up sharing something personal and you don't want it on, to go out on YouTube, just let me know that, and I'll make sure that we cut it out or we arrange for something like that. Okay. So now let me get going here. We have, let's see. Let me start to see the type of thing we're talking about here. I got a story that I like to open with here. When in the early days of the U.S., right, there was this miner, and this miner he came into possession of a gold mine, which is I guess well, he was a miner, right? And he went in there and he worked that mine every single day, to the point of exhaustion. And at the end of the day, he would treat himself by going to the saloon, and he'd hang out there for a little while, unwind and stuff. And every day he went in there was this guy that comes up to him and he says, hey, I'd like to buy that mine off you. And the guy, in the beginning, the miner says, oh, there's no way. I know there's gold in there. I can feel it in my bones. But every single day, day after day, this miner would go into that mine and he'd get really beat up by it, And every time he came into that saloon, he was looking more and more, haggard, more and more beat up, more and more downtrodden. And every single day, that guy would come up to him and say, "Hey, I'd like to buy the mine off you." And every day, the miner would tell him no. Until one day, he had one of those days. The miner had one of those days where everything that could go wrong did. All of his, his pickaxes were breaking. The fuses on the dynamite were wet. Nothing was working out. And he was really upset. He was really broken. And he comes into that saloon. And when he gets into that saloon, what he does is, the man comes up to him to offer to, buy it again. But before he could even ask, the guy, the miner says, all right, I'll sell it to you. Okay, you can have it. And he gives it to him at a good price, right? So he sells them to him. And a few days later, the miner comes back into that same saloon and he sees the guy he sold it to and he's celebrating. He's all happy. He's buying drinks for everybody. He's all lit up, And, the miner asks him, so what's the occasion? And the guy tells him, he says, well, we hit gold. And the miner's like, because you got to tell me. You have to tell me, how close did I get? I got to know, right? And the guy tells him, he says, okay, he says, well, we only dug about 3 feet, right? And the miner, for the rest of his life, right, every single time he faced a difficult situation, every single time he, felt like he was up against it, every single time he told himself, I'm 3 feet from gold. And life is like that. When things are the most difficult, right when you're about to give up, that's usually about the time you're about to break on through, to the other side there. And it kind of goes that way. So, that's the type of thing. If anybody has any stories where they overcame difficult odds or, they overcame a difficult situation. And again, this doesn't have to be in real life either. This could be in VR. The world that you're standing in right now, we didn't think this was possible. All right, this was built on an Apple iPad and a laptop that couldn't run Unity for more than 15 minutes without crashing. And the word impossible was used a bunch of times. And I tell you, I can't stand that word, because I tell you, the word impossible itself, I recently read, is just a word that we use for something that we haven't done yet. There's lots of things that we take for granted. Even us meeting here today, this once previously thought to be not possible. The whole world meeting together in a shared space like this, is something that, we could only dream of about, 20 years ago, and now it's here. All right, so let's see. We do have somebody on the list to start out with. We've got Fluffy Bunny. You are on the air. You got something for us? Where are you? There. You have something you'd like to share with us, like a story or your own, or someone you know, or something like that? Okay, you're gonna have to actually. You're still muted. I say. Let's see. Try putting you on again. Okay, you're gonna have to consent to be unmuted. There you go. No. Okay. Well, we can do the tug of war thing here. Maybe you didn't mean to press that button. That's cool. Yeah, let's just get off the list here. All right. Well, like I said, pauses are natural enemy. So if you want to be on the air here, you just press that raise hand button in your lower right, and you'll get on there. In the meantime, keep it going, right? All right. So in the in the early to mid 1980s, there was a couple named Michaela and Augusta Automay, and this couple they had a small child. He was about 4 years old, and at the age of 4, he could already speak 3 languages. Right? He was a very special kid. They were very proud of him. And they did start to notice, though, that he was starting to stumble around a little bit. He was starting to slur his words. He was starting to bump into stuff. And they got very concerned, so they took him to the doctor. And initially, the doctor thought, well, the father, he travels a lot for his job. He worked with the World Bank, and he says, he probably contracted something in your travels, like some kind of parasite or something like that. And they did all these tests, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. And then eventually they diagnosed him with a disease that I have no business trying to pronounce. They call it ALS, right, or ALD. Yeah, it's ALD. And essentially the boy's body would break down, and the doctors told him, he said, "There's no way he's going to live. That he's got maybe a few years at best." And they gave him a number of a support group, and they said, just go on home and make peace with this, and spend as much time with him as you can, because your son's going to die. And the parents they said no. And the doctor's like, I don't think you understand. This isn't like a choice. This is something you can fight. There's no cure for this. And the parents said no. They refused to accept it. They never contacted the support group. The support group actually had to come to their house and say, listen, you really got to really realize what you're facing here. And they refused to accept it. They started going to, libraries, talking to different doctors, and, doing everything they can to find out, what their options were. And it just kept looking more and more bleak. So they kept spending more and more time in the library, reading and studying. And both of them, the husband and wife, they had, their education was not much more than high school when it came, to the maths and the sciences and things like that, and the chemistry and all that. And, they spend more and more time reading and researching, and very slowly they started to learn the language of math. science of chemistry, and they just kept putting all they had into it. And you got to remember too, this was back in the days where there was no email, everything was like phone calls and letter writing and stuff, and so they were going around doing this, and well, more and more they put into it. They kept looking, and they kept going researching, and they came across these two different kinds of oils, right? And it sounded promising, so they started introducing it to the son's diet. And then they had his blood tested, and they found that the progression of the disease had actually slowed, right? So they thought they were onto something big here, right? So they started contacting all these chemists and pharmaceutical companies, and as they, there's over 100 of them that they contacted, and finally it landed on the desk of this chemist that was working on his last day. He was about to retire. It was his last day in the office, and he opens up this letter from the automates, and he was so touched and he was so moved by it that he says, he wrote him back and says, all right, I'll make this oil for you. All right, we're going to need to name it though. And they named it after his son, Lorenzo. They even made a movie about this, Lorenzo's oil. And what happened was, so they distilled this oil, right? Started, giving it to the son, and the progression of the disease stopped. All right. Now, the boy, who was only supposed to live about 3 years, right, lived to the age of 28, where he died of pneumonia because some damage from the disease had been done. But over the course of the time, anybody else that had the markers of this disease in their blood were approached by the automates in this group that they started, telling them about the oil, and they had doctors saying, no, this is crazy, this is quack medicine, this is no good. These are lay people, they've got no business trying to do the science things, right? And but it turns out that actually the oil was effective, and if you get it early enough, it'll actually stop the disease from going. So just because they refused to accept this, all right, they ended up changing the course of thousands of lives. All right, and that's kind of a big deal. And they're just regular, normal people, and you never know like how your experience is going to shape the experience of somebody else. All right, so it's kind of like that, right? So if anybody has a story that they'd like to share, is there a story where they themselves beat the odds, or somebody they know beat the odds, or maybe a story they read or something like that, and they want to share it, you just press that raise hand button. You get on my list, and we'll call on you. I see we got somebody. Let's see who we got here. We got a fresh keys. I can't see the full name here. Let's see. You're on the air. Fresh, we'll just call you Fresh. Cool name. Where
Hello?
are you?
Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up? How's it going? Fresh pizza.
Hey, how's it going?
I didn't know they were going to be sending pizza. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey,
Yeah.
all right. Cool. You got a story for us?
I don't really have a story, but I do want to say that nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. That's all I want to say.
That's totally true. I agree with you 100%.
I used to think otherwise before, and I would always think like, wow, that's impossible. There's no way they could do that. But now my entire mindset has changed to no, everything is possible. Because like we as humans, we make it possible. Like we will go to that extent to make that certain situation possible, and
Absolutely.
we get there.
Yeah, you never give up. I mean, that's the thing too. Is like when I started this event, right? I'll be honest with you. I had thinking, I understood that I don't like that word impossible. I don't believe in it. But the more and more of these things that I host, like honestly, I found it's not just the word itself, but our relationship to the word. All the stories that I've heard, you keep hearing the same things over and over again, where people are basically breaking past fear, and what they think is possible is more of a limiting factor than whether or not it actually is or not. And stuff, so hey, how's it going there? Right, nice to see you. So we are, going over that, and if anybody has anything they'd like to share, like a story or anything like that, please just raise that hand and get on my list here. So somebody appear and disappear. The panel's being weird again. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, I forgot to start the slide deck here. Oh, there's got a notice about that. Okay, well that's all right. Okay, so anyway, let's go into another one while we're waiting around. And again, if you didn't hear this announcement, we're going to be unveiling one of these buttons here tonight, today. So if you're, interested in that, hang around. It is pretty special. And we did use that word impossible quite a bit while we were working on that. See a hand going up there? Let me see if you press that raise hand button, that'll get you on the list there. Okay. So let's see. Let me share another one actually. During the when the U.S. entered the discus Olympics, that discus event at the Olympics, they were training and they wanted to make a good showing. It was the first time in the event, and they figured, oh, we're going to be breaking records. And the more they trained, they were comparing themselves against what was known to be the very best at that time, and they weren't coming anywhere close to this. They thought they were going to embarrass themselves, so they kept training harder and harder and harder, and they couldn't get anywhere close to even like what was passable. They went to the event, checking with the their equipment and stuff. And the committee said, you can't use these. Right? And they're like, well, what's wrong with them? And I said, well, these aren't regulation, these aren't regulation discs. You can't use these at all. And they said, well, all right, well, we want to compete. What can we do? And they said, well, we'll give you discs that you can use some regulation discs. So they give them these discs and they go up to the field to, warm up and get ready to compete in the event. And, they started practicing. And even in the practicing, they were already breaking records because it turns out these discs, they were much lighter than the discs that they had been using, right, to train with. And at the time, that wasn't common practice where you train with a heavier weight. You would just use the regulation discs, and that's all anybody had known to do. But so the event comes and they were just shattering record after record. I mean, it was just people were completely in shock. They were accused of cheating. I mean, they were just like, it wasn't just like, they were just breaking the record by a couple inches. That would have been a big deal. But no, they were just like completely blowing these records away. And ever since, it's now common practice to train with heavier weights and stuff. But it was the kind of thing where it was very unexpected, and they exceeded what they then thought was the limits of human possibility, right? And it's a cool thing. All right, so now if if anybody, and it's sometimes it's true, when you go through something difficult like that, something's very hard, you come out on the other side of it stronger and better than you thought you could have been. So if anybody has anything they'd like to add to that, like any stories they or somebody they've experienced or something they've read about, or maybe something like in VR, like you build a world and you could, I'm just gonna press that raise hand button, you'll get on my list there. Let's see, we got Sky. Sky, what's up?
Hi.
Hey, Sky. Hey, Sky. Yeah.
I guess I'd like to share at this point in my life, I'm retired. But at a very early age, about 13, I came down with severe anxiety problems. I mean, severe to the point where I became housebound and agoraphobic
Wow.
at that age. And I have kind of dealt with it, but challenged with it all my life. I ended up somehow, I don't even know how I did it all. I mean, it takes a lot of perseverance and believing that all things are possible. I got through college, became a counselor. I was addicted
Wow.
for a long time to alcohol to just cope. I left home when I was 13, even with it. And I know for sure this day and age that anxiety is a big problem for a lot of people. I never
Sure.
thought that I'd be able to. I guess my point, I've written a couple of books about it. I even have them on Amazon, my memoir and a handbook about dealing with anxiety and panic attacks and everything, and agoraphobia, and opened up, actually in the past couple of weeks, a world here called Coexisting with Anxiety and Panic Attacks, and developing hopefully, a couple of worlds in a hub for people who are dealing with these kinds of issues. It's so prevalent in the world today. But I managed to have a completely, as the years went by, successful, productive life, learned so much from it, hope to give back to people what I have learned. And I am a true believer in no matter what your limitation, you can have a productive life if you just keep going and believing that you can and find workarounds.
It's so
And I've
true.
done that. I just
Let me ask you.
concentrated
Let
on
me ask you this.
what I could
You
do
made
instead of what I couldn't do.
you,
Go
you
ahead.
made worlds devoted to this. Have you ever considered like doing an event around it? Because an event's going to
I am
attract a lot more people.
yes, I'm going to try to. First of all, when you have anxiety, it's hard to be a host. But
That is true.
I'm planning it.
Mhm.
I'm trying to learn how to do it. I've only been in VR altogether a total of 5 months. So
Wow.
and I built a couple of worlds. I have, like I said, that one coexisting with anxiety and panic attacks is open. And I have an offshoot of that called the Inspirational Park, which is a beautiful place to kind of meditate and filled with inspirational sayings. And it's a beautiful place. And just today started to build something probably going to be called the 3D Inspirational Museum. And
Wow.
all people have contributed to the world in a positive way. And
Very nice.
I mean, that is my bottom line, that no matter what your limitation, you can make a productive life if you just believe you can and persevere. And I've got
It's so
decades
true.
of trying to do that. So that's my story.
So true. You don't mind this going on YouTube, do you? Because like I said in the beginning, I kind of,
I have 2 books
I,
published, so I'm out
yeah,
there.
I have to ask. You know what? We're technically allowed to do it, but honestly, I have so that every time I film these, people share very personal stories, and I always feel kind of strange about, publishing it. So I figure the best thing I could do is just ask the audience when somebody shares something, just ask if it's cool. And if they're not cool with it, then I could just edit it out or something like that. Probably the best way to approach that. Let's see, I see another hand going up here. Let's see, we have a fresh pizza. Yeah, that's awesome name.
I
What's
just
going
wanted to ask, what's your YouTube channel so I can find the video after the event's over?
You can find us at Ravenhall Events or Ravenhall Labs. It's a good search for it. Or you can find us on our event channel by going to AltSpace or by going to AltVR. If you click on channels, right, you'll see a list of all the AltSpace event channels. We're at the very bottom of page 2. And there you'll see like join Discord if you want to help us put on events like this. You'll also see subscribe in the upper right. And there's also a link to our YouTube channel and all that stuff there.
Okay, cool.
You
Thanks.
subscribe. It lets AltSpace know that you like our content. It always makes us feel good when that number goes up. So, you could do that. That would be awesome. All right, let's see. We're, I'm going to take a minute to, make sure that we go over this thing because I want to show some background with something I encountered recently that I didn't think was possible. I had some frustrating moments working on it. When I first started hosting events in AllSpace, I used to have, like, in the spaces that we'd have our events, we would have like one of those drone models set up on like a helipad or something like that. And it would have like a teleporter coming out of the bottom of it. And for me, I like to have our spaces connect in some way. So you look like you're in the same area. And, so we had done this and we, it worked good for a while. We'd finish the event and we'd take everybody flying and everybody would go into the portal. And, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if, if we could have it so that the drone, flew in, as like kind of a big finish thing, like the drone would arrive to take us all away. I thought that would be really neat. And, like I said, it was possible with the MRE SDK, which is like a scripting app you can use in AllSpace to make, interactables and make your environment and, go like that. And, so wait, what was that? Okay, sorry, I was just getting a message. But yeah, it looked like it was going to be a really, tough challenge, right? And, so we started working with it and it was, I got to tell you, when I first started working on this, we didn't have a computer. All we had was an Apple iPad. And we were trying to make these scripts in like a text editor kind of a thing. And, we just kept pushing at it and trying to get some small things to happen and keep building on it. So after months of work and, learning this and figuring this, we finally got it working and we're going to unveil it here today. The way this is going to work is you see there's 2 buttons up here. We previewed one of these last night. This bottom button here, this portal button, this takes us away to the Ravenhall Flying Academy where we take everywhere flying at the end of every event, right? But this top button, this is the one I was dreaming of. This is really special. And this event means a lot to me. So I wanted to preview it. I wanted to, unveil it here. And the way this is going to work, and I don't want anyone to miss it. Well, when I press this button, right, we're going to hear a voice makes an announcement. And then off of that wall behind Don, you're going to see a drone come up, all right, from behind that wall and going to fly over us slowly. And it's going to touch down on that pad over there. And it's going to hover above there. A teleporter is going to come out, right? And then, another announcement will be made. And then we go into that portal and we get taken away to the Ravenhall Flight Academy, right, where we teach everybody how to fly and everything. It's a really cool effect. I hope you all enjoy it. And it's just a few minutes early, but we got time for one more, and then we're going to unveil this thing. But I want everybody to realize that, we did a lot to pull this off, and we're going to be now incorporating it into all of our events. All right, let's see. Fresh Pizza, you got another thing to add before we unveil this thing? What you got? What's
I was just clapping because
cool. Okay.
I enjoyed the show.
Clapping is good. I'm glad you liked it. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody had a good time today. All right. So let's see. Yeah, I'm actually nervous about this. What if I push it and nothing happens? Right? All right. We're just going to do it. It's a couple minutes early, but I'll be honest with you. I can't wait. All right. I could barely sleep last night. I was like, I'm going to show up for tomorrow. It's going to work. It's going to go great. And we put a lot of care into this. So let's, so direct your attention toward this side over here, this way. This way you don't miss it. We can watch the whole thing. Everybody, we're going to press it right now.
Ravenhall Talon aircraft en route to your position. Please stay clear of the landing pad. Thank you.
Here she comes. That's the Ravenhall Talon. You can actually fly these things. If you come to take us to the Flight Academy, you can actually wear these as an attachable. If you're in flight mode, you can fly them around. All right, now it crosses over the other side. Just like that. It comes down. And it's going to open a portal and make an announcement. But yeah, we worked real hard.
Talon aircraft is now boarding for transport to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. Please step into the blue light. Thank you.
And that's our big finish. We're going to get into all of our events like that. All right, everybody, if you want to join me at the Ravenhall Flight Academy, if you want to learn how to fly or just hang out or anything like that, just step into the portal and let's get going. Thank you all for coming. And remember, while I don't believe in the word impossible, I do believe in all of you. See you next time.